It's November 29th, 1943, and in the tail of the B-17, Rikki Tikki Tavi sits tail gunner Eugene Moran. There are over 300 planes in the air to target Bremen, a very heavily defended industrial city. With just 10 minutes to target, everyone nervously scans the skies when the inevitable call comes over the intercom.
Bandit, 12 o'clock high!
The German pilots know if they can come in straight and level from the front, they'll avoid being hit by the top turret gunner and the ball turret gunner from the planes they're targeting. A staffel of Bf-110s comes straight onto the formation. They're carrying a new weapon, 21cm Werfergranate mortar rockets. The 110s release a barrage that streaks towards the box formation of flying fortresses. In the pilot seat of Rikki Tikki Tavi, the 21-year-old pilot, First Lieutenant Linwood Langley, barely has time to register what's happening as a rocket streaks by the cockpit, barely missing him.
Jeez, did you see that? Tail the crew. 1 fort is down.
First the rockets, then the guns. The Bf-110s are now in range, and they fire with all they have. As the 110s roar by, Navigator 2nd Lieutenant Jesse Orison is ready with the cheat gun. In a moment, the enemy have gone past.
Get him, Gene!
But at the back, Gene is ready and peppers the 110s as they fly straight on and then peel off in pairs. Squinting in the distance, he sees small dots. There's more.
Bandits, 5 o'clock high!
He shouts as roaring in from above and behind are more German planes than Gene has ever seen. Bf-109s and the dreaded Butcherbird FW-190s. Then there's mayhem as the world becomes a mass of whirling planes and tracer fire.
Gee, there's too many!
Empty shell casings pool on the floor of the fort as all the gun positions send as much lead as they can towards the enemy.
3 o'clock level.
The intercom is awash with the gunners calling out the positions.
12 o'clock high! I got one! I think they're peeling off. Watch out for flak!
Then, a dirty cotton wool puff is seen exploding ahead.
Flak, 11 o'clock low!
The sky is covered in 88mm flak. Some of the German planes peel off, but others don't seem to care about the flak and just press on their attack. The B-17s are buffeted about as the flak explodes all around them. The American planes are hit and go down. Moran can see them fall out of formation and drift behind and below.
Pilot to Bombardier. Curtis, you ready to drop them? Yes, sir. Bombay doors coming open.
The Bombay doors are open. They wait nervously for the lead plane to drop their ordnance.
Just drop the damn bombs, will you?
It's away, and Bombardier Donald Curtis releases the bombs.
Bombs away!
The plane is instantly lighter and lifts as the bombs go down. The Bombay doors grind closed, and Langley turns and heads for home. The flak slowly and mercifully peters out.
Damage report. Navigator, okay. Boat turret, okay. Only some holes in the wings and fuselage. Looks like we're fine, Lieutenant.
The captain's amazed. Fortresses are tough.
The pressure looks good.
The 4 engines are seemingly unaffected and running well, and relief washes over the crew.
We're gonna make it.
Before the echo of those words dies in the ears of the men, another cry goes up.
Bandits, they're back.
A swarm of enemy fighters is spotted coming in from above.
Get to the gun.
All the men stare at the vast numbers of planes coming at them. The Germans are back to enact their revenge for Bremen.
Show 'em, boys.
The thud of the guns and the crash of shells fills the ears of every man on board as the entire box formation lights up the sky.
2 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
The formation is rocked from every angle. Fortresses go down in the melee, but the crew of Rikki Tikki Tavi are too occupied to register. Gene takes aim at an FW-190 that zips past, and then a Bf-109. He can't be sure if he's hit any of them, but he picks another target and battles on.
2 o'clock high. Watch out.
The B-17 shakes under the impact of another volley, and slowly, starts to drift back from the formation. Gene notices the gap with the main group getting wider and wider.
What's going on?
Quickly, he looks over his left and right shoulder. There's no smoke from the engines. A B-17 in formation is vulnerable to the overwhelming number and speed of fighters like these, but on its own, it's a death sentence. Slowly, the other gunners get on the intercom.
We're slipping back. What's going on? Langley!
There's no word from the captain. Gene shouts into the mic.
What's the matter? We're not staying up in formation.
All the while, the gap growing bigger. Then, over the radio, comes the message.
We're being pushed out.
Whether that was the captain or the co-pilot, no one could tell. But soon, the B-17 was completely left behind. The Germans spot the vulnerability of the plucky Rikki Tikki Tavi and get busy with their deadly work. The sound of gunfire is interspersed with the screams of men being hit. The plane flies on straight and level, but no word is heard from the captain or the co-pilot. In many interviews, Gene was too emotional to give details of what happened next. However, in the excellent book Tailspin, written by a close friend of Gene's, it states that from the bottom of the bomber, ball turret gunner Wilbert Pee Wee Provost, Gene's best friend, screamed,
"Oh, there's a son of a bitch. He's coming up at us. He's coming right up our ass. Buddy, I'm done."
Gene shouted for his friend, and he could hear shots breaking the plexiglass dome. There's a scream over the intercom, and a twin-engine Messerschmitt fighter flies up and passes the rear of the bomber, right in front of Gene's guns. Gene's 50 cals ring out at the German fighter and find their mark. Smoke trails from the stricken machine, and it falls out of view. No more is ever heard from the ball turret gunner. At that moment, a Bf-109 pulls up alongside. Gene tries to swing his guns to the right to take him out, but the German knows the B-17's arc of fire and stays just outside of the danger zone. Gene locks eyes with the pilot. Then the German gestures. He points at Gene, then points at the ground. Gene just stares back. The German repeats the gesture, and then it strikes Gene that he is being given a chance to bail. Was he the only one left? Had the remaining crew died or bailed already? He can see the other German planes waiting in the distance. It's literally a life or death decision. Gene would never get to make that decision. The temporary truce is shattered by the crack of gunfire. Someone on Rikki Tikki Tavi is still alive and is shooting at the German. Whatever choice Gene had has now disappeared. In a moment, the Bf-109 turns and is gone. With that, the German planes move in en masse to deliver the killing blow. The tail section becomes a hailstorm of metal shards and shrapnel. Gene is thrown to the floor. He struggles back to his position and tries to fire, but it's no use. His guns are jammed. He seems to be on autopilot, and despite his injuries, he gets to work on the gun. Hope fills him as he manages to get one gun to fire, just as more bullets slam into the plane and into Gene. He lets out a cry of pain and anguish as both his arms are hit, but despite 2 broken arms, he manages to fire off a few more rounds before being hit in the chest, breaking several ribs. The tail gun position is now a scene of total devastation. The plane lurches and goes forward in its death throes. Gene feels himself being pushed into his seat as the plane starts to hurtle downward. His parachute is shot up, but there's a spare near the tail wheel. He can see some of the crew, but they're laying motionless. There's a gut-wrenching groan as metal tears. He can feel the floor beneath him move, almost like he's being pulled backwards. He grabs hold of anything he can, and he watches the sky appear, and then the main fuselage drop away from the tail. He desperately grabs the floor of the tail section and pulls with all his might. Screaming with pain into his mask, he watches with horror as he sees the Rikki Tikki Tavi sink below him, while he remains planes in the tail section. In the nose section though, Navigator Jesse Orison and the bombardier Donald Curtis fire their guns at the seemingly countless planes buzzing them. There's just too many, and they're too fast. Bullets strike the plexiglass, hitting Curtis and pushing him back into Orison. The plane is nose down. Orison wrestles with Curtis's limp form and manages to get a parachute on him before the entire plexiglass nose shatters, and Orison is thrown from the plane. Jagged glass rips into his legs. He falls and pulls the ripcord, screaming with pain. It's then he sees the tail section of the Rikki Tikki Tavi. He remembered seeing the rudder and elevators fluttering as it whirled around and fell. Little did he know, his friend was still inside. There were at least 3 eyewitnesses who watched the tail fall. Some more fanciful accounts even reported that Gene kept firing as he fell. But according to Gene, that did not happen. Inside the tail, the force of the spin is tortuous. The speed of the spin and air pressure pins him into place, unable to move, and a red mist covers his vision as blood seeps into his eyes. The fall seems to take forever. The tail falls and falls, and eventually slams into trees with a violence that a living man should not feel. But Gene did. Through his damaged eyesight, Gene sees a light at the end of a tunnel. He crawls towards the light. He feels pain from his broken arms and can feel his fillings loose in his mouth. But still, he crawls towards the light. And then, he falls. Miraculously, he finds himself on a forest floor. The tail section of the Rikki Tikki Tavi is hanging above him in the trees. He lies there for a moment, elated. He survived, but not without injury. He reaches up to his head carefully with his broken arms. There's a crack in his skull, so big he can feel the softness in between the gap. Shortly, he can hear voices, half expecting to be killed by locals who occasionally enact revenge upon the falling bomber crews. He was heartened to hear the voices speaking French. Expecting to find a dead man, French workers from a nearby camp and several German soldiers find Gene. He's dragged through the forest roughly and is transported to a camp where a Serbian doctor operates on Gene, putting a metal plate in his head to cover his exposed brain. Gene's injuries were not only physical though. While recovering in the POW hospital, he experiences frequent nightmares, falling, screaming. Eventually, Gene made a recovery from his injuries, and after the war, he was released and repatriated along with his lifelong friend and only other survivor, Jesse Orison. In 2022, 8 years after Gene's death, his friend, John Armbruster, released Tailspin, telling Gene's story. It's an excellent book that we very much recommend.
Did you hear about the ball turret gunner who fell without a parachute and survived? Yeah, that's one film everyone should watch.